Hello everyone and welcome. I'm excited to be here today to talk about some of the latest advancements in study designs. On this first slide, we see the title Newer Study Designs and the subtitle Black Box Study Design. Over the course of this presentation, we'll explore what these new approaches are, why they matter, and how they can impact our work. I'll keep it concise and engaging, so let's dive in and get started. Let's talk about black box design. This approach is particularly useful when we're very interested in whether something works, but we don't necessarily need to understand exactly how it works internally. Sometimes, the inner mechanics are either too complex, too difficult to isolate, or intentionally kept hidden. Think of it as treating the intervention as a single, opaque unit, like a black box. You put something in, whether that's a treatment, a policy, or a lifestyle change. Then you measure the output, what happens as a result. The key idea here is that you don't peek inside to see which specific part triggered which change. Instead, you focus on the overall input and the resulting output, trusting that the process inside the box does what it's supposed to do. This approach connects to our broader theme of understanding complex systems, especially when the internal details are either unknown or not necessary for our purposes. It allows us to evaluate effectiveness without getting bogged down in the intricacies of how each component works. When we think about working with interventions, it's helpful to compare the traditional approach to what we call a black box trial. In a standard trial, you might test one specific chemical, like a medication, to see if it produces the desired effect. But in a black box trial, we're looking at a much more complex scenario, testing a package of care rather than a single component. So let's break down what that looks like. The input in this case is a complex intervention, like a 12-week holistic wellness program. This isn't just one thing, it's a mix of different elements working together. Now, the black box itself is the actual experience of the participants. It's what's going on inside that package: their diet, exercise routines, peer support groups, meditation practices, and the psychological changes they're going through. All of these components happen simultaneously, and together they create this intricate, interconnected experience. Finally, the output is what we can measure at the end. For example, we might look at a reduction in blood pressure or other health indicators. The key idea here is that while we can measure the outcome, understanding exactly how all these components interact inside the black box can be challenging. Overall, this approach helps us see the bigger picture of complex interventions, where multiple factors influence the results, and it pushes us to think more holistically about what leads to change. So let's talk about some key reasons why researchers choose to use this approach. First, there's pragmatism. In the real world, doctors rarely just do one thing at a time. They might prescribe a pill, give some advice, and schedule follow-up visits all within the same treatment plan. A black box design allows us to test this kind of complex, real-world effectiveness without isolating each component. Next, we have the concept of synergy. Sometimes, treatment A and treatment B only work when they're combined. If you test them separately, they might seem ineffective, but together, they produce a powerful effect. The black box approach captures this kind of magic that happens when treatments interact. And finally, there's the idea of complex systems. This is especially common in fields like traditional Chinese medicine or psychotherapy, where treatments are a blend of many variables. These variables are often physically impossible to separate into distinct doses, making the black box method particularly valuable in understanding how these intricate systems work as a whole. All of these reasons connect back to our overall theme: understanding treatments in a way that reflects their real-world complexity and interconnectedness. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the key merits and demerits of this approach. Starting with the merits, one big advantage is the high ecological validity. This means that the way we test things reflects real-world clinical practice very closely. It gives us confidence that the results are applicable to everyday settings. Another significant benefit is efficiency. Instead of running multiple separate trials for each component of a program, we can evaluate the entire program at once. This saves time, resources, and helps us see how everything works together in real life. On the flip side, there are some challenges. For example, the why problem. When a trial succeeds, we often don't know which specific part of the intervention made the difference. Was it one element or a combination? That can make refining or improving the program more difficult. Then there's the issue of replicability. Since the intervention is often delivered in a black box style, meaning it's not fully transparent, other clinics might find it hard to copy the exact vibe or subtle nuances that make it effective. This can limit wider adoption. Finally, while user-centric approaches aim to focus on what truly matters to patients, there's a risk of waste. Sometimes, we might spend money on multiple parts of a program, even if only one part is actually responsible for the outcomes. This can lead to unnecessary costs and efforts. So, as we consider these points, it's clear that while this approach has many strengths, we also need to be mindful of its limitations, especially when thinking about broader implementation and refinement. So, once we've established that a black box trial is successful, the next step often involves a dismantling study, also known as a glass box approach. Essentially, this means we take the intervention apart piece by piece to understand what parts are actually driving the effect, and which ones might be unnecessary or even redundant. For example, imagine we find that a healthy heart program works well overall. To understand which components are truly essential, we might run a follow-up study comparing diet plus exercise to diet only. This helps us see if adding exercise actually provides a significant benefit beyond just improving diet. This dismantling process is crucial because it helps us optimize interventions, making them more efficient and targeted. It connects directly to our overall theme of understanding, not just whether something works, but how and why it works. That way, we can refine our strategies and focus on the components that really matter. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time and attention throughout this presentation. If you enjoyed what you heard and found it valuable, please take a moment to subscribe. It's a small step that helps us continue to bring you more content like this. If you haven't already subscribed, I encourage you to do so now. Your support means a lot and helps us grow and improve. Once again, thank you for your interest and engagement. I look forward to connecting with you in future presentations.